Hey everyone, PincheAls here, and on today's episode, we're going to learn how to install a VR6 crank, 12 valve VR6 to be exact, and upgrade the main caps hardware for boost. Now, a lot of cars or a lot of VR6s, the main weak point on their engines is actually the hardware and not the actual physical components. Since VR6s were originally designed to be TDI engines, their internals are pretty well put together. They're strong. So all we gotta do is upgrade hardware and obviously the rest of the components. So let's get to work because this is PincheAls Garage. First things first, this video is brought to you by UROTuning. They are pretty much the primary sponsors of this video and pretty much of this build. So check them out and check out this word from our sponsor.
UROTuning, one of the best places on the internet for shopping for your European car. One thing I love about them, it's simple. Pick your make, pick your model, pick the chassis, aka the generation, sport wagon, because that's what we're working on currently, and your engine, TDI. Let's go. Right here, everything under the sun that you need for your Mark 7 Golf Sport Wagon. I love this place. I order everything from these guys and it's just legit. If you guys are like me and you always want to work on something, head on over to UROTuning and find something new for your car. Thanks for watching this and let's get back to work.
Alright, so you're going to need an M10 triple square to get pretty much unbolt all the hardware on here. We're no longer going to reuse this stuff. Just so you know, main cap bolts are not reusable. They're one-time use hardware. So keep that in mind. You use these one time. Now these are all labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Main thing that you really gotta focus on is the orientation of the actual cap itself. Okay, guys? Very vital during this process. Now, cap number 6 is going to have thrust washers. Remember that, guys? This guy's going to have these little washers that are very special, so make sure you pick those up as well when you order your hardware. Now that we got the motor ready to pretty much get some new bearings and then clean all the ports out as good as possible, and then assemble. So it's going to be bearings, assembly lube, then crank, and then top main caps with new hardware. And that is pretty much your assembly for your crank in a nutshell. All right, so we got our main stud kit. So we're converting from bolts to studs for the main caps. Part number 2045403 for a 2.8 VR6. All right, guys, very important. 12 valve. These are King Racing bearings, and these are factory size. They're not larger than stock. Right there. Part number MB7089XP. These are, again, phenomenal bearings for the type of build that we're doing. Since we're going to boost, we want to be able to rev the crap out of this motor and not have any issues down the road. So our next step here, if you got it with you, I would probably get some isopropyl alcohol and clean any surfaces on here with alcohol. Do not touch any of this surface with oil. You don't want any oil here down the middle. All your bearings go on dry, and then the next surface on top is what gets lubricant or your assembly lube. If this engine's not going to be put in the car immediately, then assembly lube is what you need. And make sure that your assembly lube is extremely tacky, meaning it doesn't run when you let it go and you flip it upside down. It doesn't drain. It just sits in its one spot and stays there. The tackier, the better, and pretty much the longer shelf life you have while you're building your motor, while you're doing other stuff around your engine or your car in general. All right, so we're gonna work on pretty much the main bearings, lower ones first. Get your kit out. What's really cool, they give you a whole little tray. Just take your sweet time. Remember, these on the bottom stay dry, and then the top is what actually gets oil. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a rag and dry my bearings out first before I start installing them. So pretty much I cleaned out the bearing really quickly just with a rag, just clean it off. And you'll see there's a little notch pretty much on this side. There's a matching notch on your main cap. So what you want to do is do the best you can to make it go down as even as possible. You don't cram it down the middle. Grab it from the sides, push down, nice and even. Once you get it going, you'll feel it. It has to even out on both sides, okay, guys? It has to be even here and here. And then just push down right down in the middle, and that's it. Every main cap has its notch all the way across. And they have these little holes that are specific for the oil galleries, is where it squirts oil. Make sure you orient those correctly. If not, you're not going to get oil in your rods. In your crank. Once you lay these all down, you're going to lay some oil down next, or assembly lube. And then we'll do thrust washers last. Now, the reason why I'm cleaning these off is they have a little bit of oil in them when they ship them. It's just for packaging so they don't rust. So I laid down some assembly lube, and what I want to do is I want to lube up the bearing on the outside rim, not the middle portion, that little groove. Don't do that. Just do the two outer portions of the actual bearing. Now this is going to allow, number one, the crank to get some lubrication on both sides, not just in the middle. Actually, no, from the half of the dome, I guess you want to call it. This is vital because the less parts or components that touch metal to metal, the better. You want as much lubrication prior to startup as possible. This just saves your engine's life, and it will prevent a premature failure or wear. It's just the smartest thing to do is lube. All right. I'm gonna go grab the crank, and we'll be right back. So, whew, sucker's heavy. Yeah. I gotta clean this off for a minute, and then I'll be right back. Got a little bit of dust on it. Okay. You gotta remember, so here's the water pump. So this is the water pump's over here. There's, oh no. Here's the timing area. So this is where the crank goes, where the gear is. So you want to put the side with the crank gear is. I'll show you what I mean. The side with the big gear goes on this side. Right here. You gotta go down nice and slow. Like that. Okay? And you'll see this where the big gear is at. This is where the crank position sensor reads pretty much the crank position. And there's a teeth right over here on this side. This is what actually turns the cam and all that stuff. So this is very important that you make sure this orientation's over here. This is pretty much where harmonic balancer sits. This is what drives your accessories and whatnot on this side. Not as important right now. We just gotta remember that orientation from this side to this side, not this way. So this is how your cam's gonna sit in here. So I rotated it because I need to make sure I get this like nice and even. So I put in the new ones a lot easier. Now there's thrust washers on this side right here. Now that becomes an issue because you need to put your thrust washers on both sides and on the bottom. So I made an error, but it's an easy fix. We got to take this back out, and then we got to slide pretty much 2 thrust washers on the bottom, and then we got to put the 2 on top with a main cap on here. This will probably be the first cap to install before I install any other caps during this process. But this part of the crank has the thrust washers right here. So thrust washers come in a set of 4. You'll see right here, these are standard size. These are not oversized thrust washers. What I like to do to make life a little bit easier is that I'll slap on, not on these, but on the actual crank, some assembly lube on the sides, so these just stick to them. So when you put the crank down and in, they stay on the actual main cap. So when you put it down, they'll just sit in place, and then the other two will be on the actual main cap itself, and then you just slide them down. Pay attention, because they do like to just turn and rotate during the pretty much dropping of the crank down in, and it just becomes an issue. So if you guys can see here, we slapped on the thrust washers here. We use a little bit of the assembly lube to stick them. Assembly lube, good assembly lube, is very, very tacky, meaning it's sticky. So it's holding the thrust washers right here in place for me, so I can pop on the crank and then go forward. What you have to be very, very careful with is that when you slap on your crank, that you don't let the thrust washers move out of place. Now what the thrust washers do is that they control end play. So you pretty much your forward and back play. If you don't put thrust washers in, you're going to have a sloppy crank, and that's no bueno for acceleration, because it's going to cause a lot of vibration. So now, with this portion of the crank already installed and good, the next step is to install all our studs for the main caps. So to install your studs, make sure you use the provided Ultra Torque assembly lubricant. This is very, very vital to the installation of your studs on your VR6. They have to go hand tight. They don't get torqued to any specification, and I'll explain. They give you a very, very specific sheet right here with instructions in the box, and you'll see here pretty much lubricate all of them. You want to tighten the nuts to 3 equal steps of 60 foot-pounds. Okay, not 60 foot-pounds. So what you do is that you go put all your studs in, okay, tighten them all down, hand tighten, that's it. You put your main caps, the washer and the nut, and then the first round of torque is 20 foot-pounds. Second round of torque is 40 foot-pounds. And then your third round of torque is 60 foot-pounds. You do that in that specific order. Now, the only thing that you don't do in that specific order, you do, is the, what is it called? Follow the recommended torque sequence. So the sequence that you put down the caps is the only thing that you follow from the manufacturer guidelines. Everything else goes in by hand, and then you, right there, 3 equal steps to 60 foot-pounds. Don't do 20, 20, 20, because then that's, I mean, even though that does equal 60, you're only torquing it to 20. You have to go up to 60 foot-pounds. So you do 20, 40, and then 60 foot-pounds. So your first step is to lubricate all your studs. You'll see on the top there's an Allen bit, and then on the bottom it's flush. This is what goes into the block. Now, don't be like shy on how much lubricant you're going to use. You just use enough. It's okay if you go a little crazy with it. It's not going to hurt anything. Okay, do one. Just going to put it in at random. I'm not going to be very specific on where it's going in. Now, what's going to happen, there's going to be some residue at the bottom. Do your best and grab a rag and see if you can clean that off before you you put your cap on, all right, guys? Because you don't want that to be a part of your mating surface when you're pushing this down, all right? Now repeat the process to all of them, and then we'll show you what to do next. All right, so now all the studs are installed, tightened down by hand. Nothing harder than that, so snug. You can use an extension. All right, so do like a little extension like this, and you can go on here and tighten them by hand like this. So that's it. That's it. You can't use any tool like a ratchet or a wrench to tighten these any harder than that. These don't go on any harder than that. You can cause some extra damage if you do that, okay guys? This is specific to the manufacturer of this hardware. So I don't know what could happen if you don't do it this way, and I don't want to know what can happen. So I follow the manufacturer specifications just like that. I already tightened them all, so we're good there. So studs are installed. All the tips of the studs have a little bit of the assembly fastener lube. You're gonna need that because when you put the new main caps on, you need that with the nut that's gonna go on there in the washer. Next one is that you're gonna put the main cap, this one right here, in next. This is the one that has the thrust washers on it. So you'll see here, it's got a notch for it, and lines up just like that. Same with this one. And then you're gonna, let's see, this way. So the numbers, you'll see the numbers back here will be going facing the dipstick tube right here. So you want to get them in nice and slow and not have them fall down like that. If they do fall down like that, you can just add a little bit of assembly lube on them. You can put some assembly lube right here just to make them stick to the main cap. Don't put a ton, just enough for it to stick. Again, this is kind of like a glue stick, so it's like it sticks, but it doesn't stick very well. The thrust washer should stick to the main cap, just like that. And what you want is it to go down as even as possible by hand. Okay? They provide you with washers and nuts. Every single one gets one washer and one nut. So, or 2 nuts and 2 washers per cap. But no stacking washers, alright guys? The reason why I love ARP hardware, it's 100% reusable for your build. So you can take apart your motor, put it back together, and then reuse the hardware. You don't have to go buy new hardware. That's the cool thing about this stuff. So the first main cap is down, not torque to spec, it's just down. We'll torque this down to spec once we have all of them set, and then we'll go from there. We'll torque them down to spec based off the sequence, the manufacturer sequence, and then remember, it goes 20, 40, and then 60 foot-pounds. There is no additional quarter turn or anything like that. These are not TTYL or TTY bolts. These are forged hardware, so they don't stretch. They will stretch minimally, but that's the point. But they're not supposed to stretch like a factory bolt where they're one-time use. Forgot to lubricate my my caps, so took them off really quick and lubricated them all before I mess with anything. Forgot to mention, when you put in your main caps on the main cap bearings on the main caps, it's the same exact process. Nothing changes. There's a special notch that lines them all up for you. It's nothing difficult. No rocket science here, guys. So 1 through 7 caps installed or laid in place. Now we're gonna get them pushed down by hand, and then we're gonna torque everything to specification. Okay. So I'm gonna correct myself because I always quadruple check everything. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If we do 3 and 3, this is the middle. So number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. From pretty much in, out, and you repeat that torque sequence all the way across. So all we're going to do right now is tighten the main caps down till they hit the bottom. We're not going to torque these down yet. We're not there yet. So 1, 2. 3, 4. 5, 6. 7, 8. 9, 10. 11, 12. And 13. 14. All right. So now that we're there, here's the first batch of torques at 20 foot-pounds. All right, guys. So here we go. Number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and last but not least, 14. Now, 40 foot-pounds. Same procedure. Start from the very first one. 1. Put my foot on here. 2. 4, 5, 6, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep. That's not gonna work. I gotta keep doing it the way I was doing it. Right, gotta verify this one, because I think I skipped one. I don't want to make sure I skip any. I want to start there. Okay, last but not least, 60 foot-pounds. Whew. It gets a lot harder from here now. One, two, done. You should be able to spin the crank, not 100% freely, but easily. It's still a heavy crank, but that is pretty much torque to spec. All new hardware, new bearings, pretty much forged hardware, best stuff out there. That's how we install a crank. Next time, on the next video we're going to be installing rods and pistons and rod bearings and showing you guys how to pretty much properly slap in your pistons, because you need a very special tool to actually put your pistons in these engines, because they're at a 15-degree angle. So thanks for watching this episode of PincheAls Garage on how to install a VR6 crank on a 12-valve VR6 to be exact. Thanks to UROTuning for sponsoring this video, and every Patreon member listed down in the credits. Thank you guys. You guys have a wonderful day. Peace out.